Okay, so this is not a full-fledged Mishlei shir, but I had an epiphany, and I wanted to just talk it out. And Zev also had an epiphany, so we'll see if it's the same epiphany. Right. So there's been a lot of talk recently about IFS, internal family systems, which is a what do you call it? A theory, a method of psychotherapy, which I don't know that much about. I've only heard the Tim Ferriss interview. That's basically the main the main thing. Interview with the founder of it or the discoverer of it, whatever you call it. Which is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you've read more about this than I have. Is that the theory is basically that there are within a person's psyche parts, okay, which are analogized to people, basically, for lack of a better term, they probably have official terms for this, but the child that let's say you had some sort of childhood trauma, so that split off in a certain sense, that part of your psyche split off and is still active in the sense that it's there and can affect you, and that the idea to find some sort of balance or communication or integrity, maybe is a better word.
It's to sort of allow the parts to unburden.
Yeah.
From their
right. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, if you want more about that, then you could look into it. So the epiphany I had was so yesterday in the Shadal shir, then he mentioned that there's two parts of a person. There's two components of a person. There's the thinking part and then the feeling part. The inner feeling, and that and he was saying you can't you can't override either of them, and and I mentioned you need to speak to the emotional part in the language that it understands. And so I was actually referencing Saadia Gaon, okay, which is a fundamental part of his idea in Mishlei. So I just want to read this one paragraph in Saadia Gaon's Akdama. So he says, V'od, see it there on the, Shehahamon, so the masses, Kevin Shiadias Hachushim Etzlam Krova Vakala Midias Haseichal, since the knowledge of the senses, meaning sensory perceptions and sensory knowledge, is closer to them and easier for them than intellectual knowledge, because you're born with the senses, with the sensory vehicles or whatever. Lefikach, therefore, therefore it is necessary to make metaphors for them, and this is the key line, to equate for them, to equate in their eyes the obligations of the intellect to the obligations of the senses. Okay? And then he gives examples. Bir hadavar, the explanation of the matter, shahush, that the senses, kasher roa eish, when they see fire, boreach hachai mimena, mipachdo pen yisaref. So any creature when it sees fire is going to flee from it, out of fear it's going to get burned. V'kach, so too, im shama kol mafchid, if it hears a frightening sound, Yivrach mimena ba'oven TV. It'll flee from it in an instinctual way. Because these things are sensed, like with the senses. And for this reason, when the intellect sees something destructive, or it hears about something that's harmful, and the intellect reveals this to the senses, to the instincts. And it sees that the instincts do not rely on the intellect and don't accept it, right? So it sees an emotional resistance. Medaber imo be'ofen shiavin. So the intellect will speak with the instincts in the manner that they understand. Okay, v'omer lo, and it'll say to the instincts, sim lev, pay attention. Shezeh shani omer lecha, this thing that I'm telling you about. Hu kamo ha'esh. It's like that fire, asher isicha borech mimena, which I see you fleeing from. Okay. Just like deep water that is that you instinctually guard yourself against. This is the purpose of mashalim, or the use of mashalim. Lekarev leteva es hachlatus haseichal, to bring close to the instincts the definitiveness of the intellect. V'omrim lo, and to say to it, ki zeh doma lama she'ata margish b'hush, that this thing that the intellect perceives is similar to what you perceive in the senses. Lefikach, therefore, huchra lechano sefer zeh shu sefer Mishlei mipnei sheish bo min hasugim halalu. That's why we call it sefer Mishlei, because it has things in this category. Lefi shehu mamshil as hagezel sheniglis l'seichel migraaso l'retzach asher niglis migraaso l'teva. It compares theft, whose evil is evident to the intellect, to murder, whose evil is evident to the instincts. Ka'amru kain orcho. Okay, and then he quotes a pasuk. Almost done with this. Umamshil as znus she'amad hasechal al hashchisus sheba, and it compares. I think this is like actual. I don't think this is like licentiousness. I think it's like prostitution, right? Like going to a prostitute. It compares that, which is the harm is obvious to the intellect. It compares it lenefila lelabor shu avadan galoi lachush, to falling into a pit, which is evident to the senses. Umamshil as mi she'eno yachol lishlo berucho shnisbar l'seichel chet'o ki'ir she'en lachoma she'efkera galoi lachush. And it compares someone who can't control his emotions, which is evident to the intellect, to a city that has no walls that could easily be breached. Okay, so that's like the Saadia Gaon principle, right? So you're talking. So there's two things. You talk to the masses in a language that they can understand, but then within each person, what you're doing is you're talking to the psyche or to the instincts and to the senses in a language that they can understand. Cool. So, you want to say your epiphany first, or you want me to say mine?
Mine's totally different.
Okay, good. All right, we got two epiphanies. So my epiphany was like this: when we did a pasuk yesterday about an embarrassing son. Okay, and we thought embarrassing son was a type of fool because in other psukim it is, but then we found out that this was just any son, really, right? Uh-huh. So here's the epiphany. What if you could use all the psukim in Mishlei about parents and children as a way of conducting IFS?
It is related to what
meaning that within each person, even if you yourself are no longer a son, there are still remnants or vestiges or parts or aspects of you that are that son who is afraid, or that son who's under the control of his father or whatever. And there's also inner voices, like the voice of your father and other stuff like that. Again, I don't know IFS to know in terms of how that would look in particular, but it is a new direction, because I think we've assumed that all of the parent-child things are either for a literal parent and a child, or for someone who is in a parental position, like a Rebbe or like something like that. But what this would mean is that within your own self, then the same dynamics play out in the different parts of your psyche.
Right.
Yeah. So what was the angle you had?
Okay, so mine was slightly different. It wasn't in terms of learning Mishlei, but in terms of like living Mishlei.
Yeah.
So I guess I was thinking if you assuming that it is a beneficial way to look at your psyche as a system of different people.
Yeah.
And the goal is to have them wherever working together. And each part being benefited.
Yeah.
I guess. So then by doing tzedakah to the external system, you're actually reinforcing this way of thinking. And that will actually be.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So meaning
as an individual.
So you're putting the emphasis on the systemic outlook, and tzedakah being caring for the system or caring for parts insofar as the system is concerned,
right.
And that'll make you more. That's in line with the idea that we did for tzedakah tatzil mimaves, I think, or similar to it. Is that real tzedakah midoraisa is taking care of the needs of that particular, but then the higher level of tzedakah, like as a tzaddik, that's the act of tzedakah. But then as a tzaddik, is you're providing for the needs in reference to the whole, and that's tatzil mimaves in the sense that if you do that externally, it will also change to the way you treat yourself and your own money. And this is then taking it one level inwardly to the internal systems.
Right.
The internal family systems. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, good. So that was the epiphany. We'll see where it goes, but I'm going to stop the recording now.